All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So if everyone can grab a seat at a table. So, hello. Good evening, not afternoon. I always get confused with evenings and afternoons, but good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 50th year celebration of the Warren Alpert School of Medicine of Brown University. Thank y'all so much for coming out this evening. First and foremost, I think that we're going to clap it up for y'all being here, so thank you so much for being here. My name is Giselle Bello. I am the proud daughter of Dominican immigrant parents, a first-generation, soon-to-be medical graduate, and an even prouder future OBGYN. It literally is what I've been waiting to do all my life. Thank you. So as I mentioned, we are here to kick off the 50th year celebration of medicine at Brown and what we have now come to know as the Warren Alpert School of Medicine of Brown University. So I've been reminiscing a lot because I'm going to be leaving soon, so I want to take y'all back to a very special day, October 21st, 2017. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a gloomy and rainy fall Rhode Island day, you know, nothing out of the ordinary. But for me, it was the day. It was the day that I had my first medical school interview, and at Brown, of all places. This fact carried a lot of weight because I remember being a junior in high school and expressing that I had wanted to come to Brown. And I had a really rude guidance counselor say something along the lines of, "You shouldn't apply there. People like you don't get into places like that." 8 years later, while I was applying, I heard her voice in my head again. But here I was, having the audacity to apply to Brown and on my way to interview day. For those of you who know me, you know I was not gonna let a fall gloomy vibes ruin my excitement for that day. I wore that scarf that I forgot to bring up right there. Can you put it up? And actually these shoes that y'all can't see. But I wore that scarf particularly because I was tired of the boring blues and blacks and whites of professional attire. I wore it to convey the colorful aspects of my personality and to remind myself how far I had come. That day flew by, but there were key moments scattered throughout that stayed with me, like the diversity and life experiences of the student body, the sense of community support, and a certain oomph that I felt, but I really couldn't put my finger on. During our lunch break, eager med students swarmed the conference room, ready for the free lunch, but mostly very excited to talk to us. I spoke to students who, just like me, had taken years off to pursue other passions. Some of them went into teaching or investment banking, professional dance, and some had even started their own families. Although this was my first interview, it stood out to me that students had interests that they were still maintaining, that they seemed happy and were well-rounded and didn't look too exhausted. While on our tour at the med school, I got to see the support fabric at Brown in action as we passed by offices like the Office of Student Affairs, the Office of Medical Education, the Office of Diversity and Multicultural Affairs, and the Office of Career Development. It was clear that students were expected to rise to the challenges of what it means to be a medical student, but not without the backing of these essential offices, especially these last 2 years. I got the sense that day that I could stumble, and I sure did, but that I would always have someone there to catch me. Now, onto that oomph that I felt that day. I really didn't understand it until maybe a year into med school. As medical students at Brown, we are devoted to improving the health and wellness of everyone. I arrived here with this understanding really central to my core. It's the thing that brought me to medicine. But my classmates, they taught me the importance of the actions behind that mission. As medical students at Brown, we're leaders devoted to improving the health and wellness of everyone. That means that sometimes we have to challenge the status quo. That also means that when we find inequity in systems we're a part of, we challenge and hold to account the institutions responsible for those systems. To be a medical student at Brown means to expect more from our institutions, our society, and the world at large, with the sole purpose of leaving it better than we found it. In simple terms, I call that just being a really great person. But later I learned that that oomph that I felt that day is actually more specifically called social responsibility. As I get ready to move on to the next leg of my journey at Emory, bittersweetness has become my closest friend. Looking back on interview day, I'm gonna get a little emotional. Looking back on interview day, I see that it was a microcosm of all of what was to come. When I left, I reverted to like my 16-year-old self who like wanted that boy to text her back. And I felt deep in my bones that Brown was the place for me. I'm so grateful that I got that acceptance letter on November 21st, 2017. Being here has been a dream for me and my family. I am so proud to be leaving here a stronger, more compassionate, and resilient leader. Thank you. I'm going to take a picture of you guys. All right, thank you. Enough of those, emotions. Now let's get to the real party. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce President Paxson. Christina H. Paxson became Brown's 19th president in 2012. In February 2017, the Corporation of Brown University appointed her to a second 5-year term as president, extending her tenure through June 30th, 2022. As Chief Executive Officer, President Paxson reports to the corporation, oversees all divisions of Brown administration, and is Chief Ambassador for the university. Nationally recognized as a leader in higher education and an accomplished scholar, she is a professor of economics and public policy. So please join me in welcoming President Paxson.
Thank you, Giselle. And I do have to say, yes, my appointment was extended to June 2022, but I'm going to stay a little beyond that. So in case you think I'm not stepping down in a month, because I love it here. It's the best job in the world. So welcome everybody to a celebration of 50 years of medicine at Brown. Today we kick off what will be a year-long celebration of the legacy and impact and future of the Warren Alpert Medical School. You can applaud, yeah. So I'm just really thrilled that so many of you have joined us here today. It's a great crowd. We have current students and faculty and staff and alumni and parents and people who have worked at the medical school and have left to go on to other careers and jobs and have come back tonight because they loved it so much. We also have many members of our local Providence and Rhode Island communities, including community partners, hospital partners representing Lifespan, Care New England, and the Providence VA. So thanks to all of you for coming. I also want to welcome our elected leaders, and especially Senator Reid, who you'll hear from shortly. And thank you to the 50 Years of Medicine Steering Committee led by, where's Shelley Sear? Right there, terrific. Shelley will say everybody else did all the work, and I think a lot of people did a lot of work, but I think Shelley we owe her a debt of gratitude for developing and guiding this celebration. Now, earlier this year, we welcomed Mukesh Jain as our new Dean of Medicine, and he's a fantastic, fantastic addition to Brown. We're also honored tonight to have many former leaders of the medical school with us today. And in truth, you get to the 50-year point and you look back and you see a succession of incredible people who've helped us to get us to this point. Some are here in person, some have joined us virtually. So I'd like to recognize all of them. So if you're with us today, I invite you to stand and be recognized. And the first, and I'm going to go reverse chronological, Jack Elias, 2013 to 22. Where's Jack? And the dean who was here when I joined Brown, Ed Wing, 2008 to 2013. Thank you, Ed. Elliot Dashi, I believe, is not here, 2005 to 2008. Before him, Richard Bezdine, 2002 to 2004. And then before that, we have Donald Marsh, 1993 to 2002, David Greer, 1981 to 1992, long tenure. Founding Dean Stanley Aronson is no longer with us. I believe his wife, Gail, is here tonight, is that right? Please stand, please stand. Thank you. So tonight we celebrate half a century of the Warren Alpert Medical School, and I think, as we all know, its mission is to support and promote the health of people and communities through the three pillars, and I learned this from Jack Elias: education, research, advancing clinical care. And we talk about these three goals all the time. They are inextricably linked. I could easily make any one of the three the focus of my remarks tonight, but they will go on too long, so I won't do that. Tonight, as we kick off this celebration, I thought it would be good to focus on the impact that the Warren Alpert Medical School has had in this state, in Rhode Island. As a university, we strive to prepare students to solve problems in the service of the nation and the entire world, but also, just as importantly, in service of our local community. So let's go back 50 years, and you may hear some of this from the senator who's going to speak after me. Those of you who are here at the time know well that those were the battle days in some ways. Rhode Island was one of only a few states that didn't have its own medical school. Rhode Islanders had to travel out of state for specialized care. Local hospitals struggled to recruit physicians. And that's no small problem. I mean, if you have a diminishment in the quality of care, that translates into low quality of life. And that's something that we have to pay attention to. The faculty, and especially the faculty, I think persuaded the corporation, but they came around in a great way. They knew that this was not tenable. And there was an unmet need. Brown could and should play an important role in improving the health care of people of Rhode Island, as well as for people all around the nation and around the world. So in 1972, the corporation voted to create a full medical degree program. We have a few people here, at least one, who is a graduate of the very first class. Raise your hand. You can stand. Yeah? So that was a milestone, and thanks to the generous support of so many Brown alumni and friends and the tireless work of people at Brown and in Rhode Island, Brown positioned itself as a leader in biomedical research and education, working to better the quality of health care and life for people in Rhode Island and other places. Now, I think the second big milestone came in 2007. And that was when, thanks to the generosity of the Warren Alpert Foundation, our renamed medical school saw its first dedicated home building in Providence, Rhode Island. I've heard stories of before that, the med school being in the basement of one of the biomedical, yeah, okay, we don't want to go back there. It wasn't great. But after this generous gift, the medical school finally had this amazing place to call home in the jewelry district of our state, our city. And this historical district of Providence has now been transformed and is continuing to transform into a really lively hub of innovation, bringing in $200 million and more of grants every year, continually spurring more investments and jobs. And you know, today I think I could brag for a long time, but I have to give me a little bit. We see the far-ranging impact of the Warren Alpert Medical School in so many ways that transform the lives of patients and their families. The Legaretta Cancer Center is brand new, but yes, really important. You know, what it's going to do is bring together researchers and clinicians and scientists to develop and push out treatments and prevention methods for a host of different types of cancers, especially those that are most prevalent in this state. We have a Center for Alzheimer's Disease Research that's integrating scientific and clinical work that we hope will change the trajectory of lives for people with Alzheimer's and dementia. And I have to note one of the educational programs that I really am so proud of, which is the Brown Tougaloo Early Identification Program, which brings brilliant students from Brown's partner, Tougaloo College, which is an HBCU in Jackson, Mississippi, to our medical school. And do we have any Tougaloo graduates here? Yes, right here, Galen. Woo. I would say Galen Henderson also has the distinction of being, I think, you're a past president of the Brown Alumni Association, and you're the only president of the Brown Alumni Association who has a Brown Medical School degree. Is that right? Yeah, it's great. So just a few more things before I introduce Senator Reed. You know, the work of the Warren Alpert Medical School, it matters, and it matters to the lives of real people who live in this area every day. Our medical school students, our researchers and physicians, they work to improve the care of patients across the state, tackling issues like the health challenges of aging, and I know we have some great faculty working in aging and gerontology here tonight, to reducing maternal and neonatal mortality, another really important area, reducing health disparities, something we've become really attuned to, especially during the pandemic. And we can be really proud, just one small example, that in 2019, the Warren Alpert Medical School became the very first medical school in the entire country to graduate an entire class of medical school students with certification in medication-assisted treatment for opioid use disorder. Great. And one thing I know is that was an initiative that faculty in the medical school were really enthusiastic about, but it was students who also really said, look, this is something that we need to do. And the agency and commitment of our students has always been a big part of the school. Now, as we've strengthened the fabric of healthcare in our state, we've also continued to work to increase the quality of our healthcare workforce in Rhode Island, bringing top talent to the state. Soon-to-be physicians, our medical students, and our residents, they come here to learn, but they stay here for the people of Rhode Island, and that's really important. Today, 60% of physicians in the state are affiliated with the Warren Alpert Medical School through our affiliations with Lifespan and Care New England and the Providence VA Medical Center, and also Hope Health. half of those who complete a medical school and residency at Brown are practicing in Rhode Island. So we may be a small state and only one medical school, but I think we do have an outsized impact on the state. I'm exceedingly proud, and I think I speak for everybody in the university, the corporation, our alumni body, of your collective work. And I know many of you are here today. It's impossible to celebrate this milestone without recognizing what our healthcare workforce has been through over the past 2 years during the pandemic. Brown-affiliated physicians, medical students, and alumni have been on the front lines of the response. And it's been exhausting. It's been trying for you personally and professionally, regardless of what specialization you're in, what field you're in. I hope it's also been rewarding. I hope you understand how important it's been. Because what you're doing is contributing every day, what you've been doing, to the response on the ground across this state, and it matters. Now, all of our, and I call them frontline workers, people who've been involved in treating patients over the past 2 years, everybody who's with us today, if you don't know who you are, you have white ribbons in recognition of your efforts. I hope they put the ribbons on, or else this will be embarrassing. I'll invite all of you now to stand and be recognized. So anybody who's been involved in the front lines of healthcare, stand up. Yeah. Thank you. So just in closing, the work of the Warren Alpert Medical School, it initiates in Providence and Rhode Island. From there, it spreads across the nation and the world. It radiates. And as we've witnessed over the past year, the power of translational research, right? We've seen this, how important it is. The rapid transformation of basic science into treatments and vaccines. This is what ultimately will get us out of this pandemic. We're almost there, I hope, fingers crossed. But it's also going to be the way that we get out of so many other healthcare problems that we're facing. And we've seen how important it is to treat and cure things like kidney disease and heart disease and lung disease and diabetes and obesity, which have placed people at special risk during the pandemic, but are also really important all the time. So I love what the medical school does, and I'm proud to be a strong supporter of the medical school, and I can't wait to see, well, maybe I won't be here for the whole next 50 years, but I want to see a long part of that, what the medical school is going to bring into the future. So with that, I would like to introduce, very short introduction, U.S. Senator Jack Reed. And the only thing I'll say about him is he has been just a tireless advocate all the time for this state, but very, very strong supporter of Brown University, of the Warren Alpert Medical School, the research, the education, the work we're doing here. He gets it, and I appreciate that, and I think we all should. Thank you, Senator.
Well, thank you, Madam President, for that very kind introduction. And in fact, I don't know anyone who deserves a short introduction more than myself. I thank you very much. No, I really want to thank President Paxton not only for their kind words, but also for her extraordinary leadership and for her commitment, not just to Brown University, which is incredible, but to the state of Rhode Island. And you do it so well, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you. We 50 years ago, if we were having a ceremony, my predecessors, John O. Pasteur and Claiborne Pell, would be here. And I know they were actively involved in the formation of the school. So I am trying, along with my colleagues, Senator Whitehouse and Congressman Cicilline and Congressman Langevin, to carry on a tradition of supporting this great institution, and particularly the Warren Alpert Medical School. Now, let me recognize Dean Jane. Thank you, Dean, and all the deans that are here. And I know that Councilwoman Anthony is here. Thank you for your leadership in the community, Councilwoman. For 50 years, the medical school has served this community, the state of Rhode Island. It's turned out generations of exceptional doctors and leaders in their fields. And it has advanced discovery and innovation, responded to evolving healthcare needs, and shared new knowledge with medical students and doctors worldwide. This institution has had a tremendous impact here in Rhode Island and far beyond. And I will concur with President Paxton. I grew up here in Rhode Island, in Cranston, and in the 1950s and 60s, this was not a place where you could get expert medical care, tertiary care. That all changed with the Brown Medical School, and it changed for the better for all of us, and thank you very, very much for that. Now, we have to thank many people. First, the students, and I think Giselle Bello has exemplified what we appreciate and owe to these marvelous students. Thank you, Giselle. The extraordinary faculty, the administrators, the residents, the physicians, the trustees, the volunteers, everyone who's helped shape and grow this institution. And echoing President Paxton, we have a special debt over the last 2 years to all the healthcare professionals that risked their health, indeed their lives, to serve this community and this nation. I thank you for that. This great medical school started from humble beginnings, 16 students in 1972. But now, 3,893 physicians have earned their medical degrees in these 50 years. And they've spread their knowledge, their talent, and their kindness and their thoughtfulness across not only this country, but the globe. And we are gathered here in owe a great debt of gratitude to the founding dean, Dr. Stanley M. Aronson. Not only was Dr. Aronson a notable figure at Brown, but he was a prolific writer and columnist for the Providence Journal. Correct? Yes. And he described the medical school's founding in 1972. In his words, "We had a group of graduate students at Brown," he recalled. "We asked them, 'Your records are excellent. You could probably get into Harvard or Boston University immediately. Would you gamble on a school that does not even have a building? Has the faculty so small a number that we could fit the entire faculty in one classroom? We don't have permission from the federal government to go ahead. Are you willing to gamble?' Well, I am certainly glad that they gambled, and the bet paid off big time for everyone. It was a talented faculty of 43 professionals. They launched the school, and Dr. Aronson himself wisely led it. They laid a strong foundation for what today is a preeminent medical school in the world, not just this country. Medical education that the young men and women have received here opens a great world of opportunity. And we have, as I said, Dr. Aronson and all his predecessors and everyone responsible to thank. You are training the next generation of physicians and professionals here today, and you're doing it extremely well. But you're also enhancing research and breakthroughs in science and medicine that will benefit, again, not just this country or this state, but the entire world. We've worked together to try to get you the resources to do that, and we'll continue to work together. The Warren Alpert Medical School has been a real game changer for Rhode Island and the nation. So here's to the next 50 years, making a difference, caring for people, serving the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Reed. I brought my scarf up this time. At this time, I'm going to ask y'all to turn your attention to one of the screens up here to enjoy this video overview of the past, present, and the future of our beloved med school.
The story of medicine at Brown began when the Corporation of Brown University approved the creation of a 4-year medical program.
An auspicious opportunity
to train physicians and scientists imbued with the mission of Brown University.
The innovative curriculum for the program in medicine would provide physicians with an understanding of the broadest aspects of human experience.
Our students considered themselves not as the great patriarchs bringing the gift of medicine, but as fellow human beings, fallible, people who will become sick themselves, perhaps even die.
The program's first students and faculty would become the architects of a new medical school.
A place where passion for scientific discovery
Is matched only by compassion for humanity.
Rhode Island's only school of medicine would attract the world's leading physicians,
and train doctors to care for patients throughout the state.
Elevating healthcare quality and access.
In 2007, a transformational gift from the Warren Alpert Foundation opened a new era of possibility. For 50 years, physician scientists at the medical school have been addressing complex health problems in a way that is distinctively Brown.
Driven by the belief that the field of medicine must include people from all races and backgrounds who reflect the diversity of human experience.
enabling undergraduates to commit to medicine and be shaped by the breadth of a liberal arts education.
Supporting clinical faculty who have built a legacy of transformation.
Helping to develop the first chemotherapies for cancer.
Defining the standard of care for HIV.
Paving the way to understand addiction.
And laying the groundwork for the Brown School of Public Health.
Today, we see the excellence of the Warren Alpert Medical School in service to local communities.
Brown medical students and faculty provide care wherever they are needed.
And from the earliest days of the COVID-19 pandemic, Brown physicians and alumni have been the backbone of our healthcare systems and leaders in helping navigate the crisis.
What started with a chalkboard in a basement on Meeting Street has become one of the top medical schools in the world.
Now, every day, in labs across campus and in Rhode Island teaching hospitals, faculty seek treatments and cures that will define the next 50 years of medicine at Brown.
Physician scientists are developing a vaccine for malaria,
Finding ways to prevent Alzheimer's disease.
Discovering new cancer therapies,
confronting health disparities and racism in medicine,
and preparing a new generation of doctors.
At the Warren Alpert Medical School of Brown University, our faculty, students, staff, and alumni have been changing the world for 50 years, and we aren't done yet.
Yeah, so cool. I went here. So it is now my honor to introduce our Charles O. Cook Distinguished Visiting Alumni Lecturer and Keynote Speaker, Dr. Jeffrey Hines. Dr. Jeffrey Hines is currently the Medical Director of Diversity, Inclusion, and the Center for Health Equity for Wellstar System in Marietta, Georgia. He is also the Chief of the Division of Gynecology Oncology for the Wellstar Medical Group. Beginning in June 2022, Dr. Hines will be the inaugural Chief Diversity Officer for the University of Connecticut Health System. Jeff is a proven leader with expertise in the field of diversity, equity, and inclusion. He successfully developed strategies and implemented programs with health systems, educational institutions, and nonprofit organizations locally and nationally to meet their diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. He is a visionary and results-oriented thought leader and an executive with a proven track record of driving and integrating results into all components of organizations. Dr. Hines is a native New Yorker, me too. He attended Brown University as part of the combined 7-year medical education program, so the PLEME program, which means that he got his undergraduate degree here at Brown and also his medical degree here at Brown. So without further ado, Dr. Hines.
Good evening, everyone. It is truly, truly a pleasure to be here. President Paxson, Dean Jane, members of the 50th Year Medicine Steering Committee, Senator Reed, Giselle, thank you for that amazing opening. I am honored to be here this afternoon, this evening, depending upon where you are, to be the Charles O. Cook Distinguished Visiting Lecturer and begin this year-plus celebration of the Warren Alpert Medical School, its evolution, and its plans for the future. This 50th anniversary celebration has a theme that President Paxton had said of legacy, impact, and the future of medicine at Brown. Therefore, my remarks will settle on a certain theme. And if I could have my first slide up. This is not going to be a traditional lecture, but I was asked to do things a little differently, so I do have a short slide deck. Perfect. I'm going to use my remarks and my theme around perhaps one of my favorite quotes from Shakespeare. What's past is prologue. And for those of you that know Shakespeare, this comes from his play, The Tempest. In contemporary terms, this phrase stands for the idea that history sets the context for the present. I'll also add, it sets the context for the future. This is a slide of the statue Future in front of the National Archives, and embedded in it is what's past is prologue. And underneath that, I put a timeline of where Brown has been and where it's going, starting back in 1764. There's a couple of dates on there that are important. 1960, when the corporation had some meaningful conversations around what a medical school would look like here. 1970, when the corporation approved a medical school at Brown. And then finally, 2022, where we are today, celebrating 50 years. But I will start with a bit of a story. So, who's this skinny kid from Long Island, New York, who decided in 5th grade that, and you can probably pick me out over there in the corner, that he wanted to be a physician? He graduated from high school, and like so many people came to Brown in that very congested northeastern corridor of those of us that came to Brown, decided he wanted to become a physician, applied to the PLEMI program, and got admitted. So I was here, but I didn't quite understand what it meant to be here. So I'm going to divide this brief lecture into 3 sections. There's going to be a section before Jeff Hines was at Brown, while Jeff Hines was at Brown, and then after Jeff Hines left Brown. So here's my timeline. I'm an oncologist. You have to bear with me. So we're going to start with 1764 to 1979. And a lot happened during that time period. But I want to focus on a few things. And there's too many women and men who were pioneers for Warren Alpert Medical School to mention. And when I mention a few, please do not take this to mean that these were the only few people. But there's a few people that I'd like to call out. I want to call out Pierre Galletti. Pierre Galletti was visionary. He was an incredible pioneer. And in reading about Pierre, what I mostly want to comment is the following, and what he had to navigate. What Pierre had to navigate was, well, first of all, let me say, an incredible visionary leader who was part of the birth of the medical school and shepherded the medical school for its first 20 years. But in reading about Pierre and what he had to do is, and I quote, he adeptly navigated early adapters of the medical school. He navigated the skeptics of the medical school. He figured out who were the never changers. He figured out who the stakeholders that were going to move things forward, figured out institutional dynamics and culture. I'm a former Army guy. You'll see something about that soon. He had a clear line of sight. He seized opportunities, he was resilient, and he provided courageous leadership. And these are all things that are embedded into the ethos and he passed on to each of us. I didn't know that at the time when I got here in 1979. Had an opportunity to talk to Roy Hudson. Roy Hudson is now 92, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he might be the first tenured black faculty at Brown University. And we will do some additional celebration of him later on during this year-long celebration. But what I found out is that Roy Hudson is my neighbor. He lives in a suburb just north of where I am in the Atlanta area. And I reached out to him to find out what things were like back in the late 60s and 70s when he arrived here. And he told me, and you know, Roy was interesting. I offered to drive to his house. He said, no, I'm not ready for that, Jeff. I offered to do Zoom. He says, I don't do Zoom. So we did an old-fashioned phone call, and Roy and I have had 3 one-hour phone calls so far in about a 4-week period as I got to know him. And he sent me an incredible amount of information about some of the early years of Brown, and I've shared it with Kaylee and her group so that it could be archived appropriately. But what he told me, it is this something that's just instinctively Brown. He said, you know, Jeff, we wanted to do a conjoint educational experience. And I said, well, what does that mean, Roy? He said, what that means is we were going to intimately link basic science with clinical medicine. And I thought that was just novel for the way that they thought back in the late 60s, early 70s. And I call your attention to that picture on the right panel of this slide. And that's a picture that he sent me of the Division of Neurosciences back in 1970. Pay attention to that picture. Look at the racial and ethnic, and look at the gender diversity that's in that picture back in 1970, Brown University Medical School. So those folks did some amazing work teaching medical students, but they were also on the forefront of what we're doing to address issues of diversity. Jeff Hines arrives at Brown, 1979 to 1986. So one of the things I learned really on in my career at Brown was who you know and who you meet in your life matters. And I'm so excited that I'm sitting at the table with this young man tonight. Levi Adams was someone who taught me many, many lessons during my time at Brown and my time after Brown. He's someone who I could still call regularly and ask for advice. But what I learned and what Levi taught me and so many undergraduate students and medical students at Brown is the importance of mentorship, the importance of sponsorship, and the importance of being accountable to the greater good. Thank you, Levi. So here we are, the MD class of 1986. I don't know if you can see Marcus Aurelius in the background, you know, that field that we all stand in front of to get our picture taken. So here we are, my fellow classmates and I. And what did we learn at medical school at Brown? We learned to leverage compassion, humility, and knowledge. We learned the importance of impact, humility, passion, and ambitious vision. Skills that we took with us into our residencies, into our professional lives. We learned the art and the importance of being collaborators, of being participators, of being conveners. We learned the importance of putting together multi-sector partnerships. We continue to dream. We are life learners. We learn to be proximate. We learn to be bold, courageous, innovative, and to practice constructive thought and provide thought leadership. Another part of this picture that you may realize is that part of the legacy of Brown is the 20 women and men that joined us from Dartmouth Geisel Medical School back in the day. So there were 80 of us from Brown and about 20 folks from Dartmouth that make up this graduating class of 1986. Jeff leaves Brown. So what happens to alumni of Brown Medical School? Some of us go on to serve in the military. There is a proud tradition of service and selflessness among Brown undergrads and also Brown medical grads. And what's so exciting through Chris Paxton's leadership is recent generosity from alumni that has allowed many veteran-centric scholarships and programming to be stood up here at Brown, and that's something that we should be very proud of. So this is a picture of when I came back from Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and saw my daughter after, you talk about getting emotional, after 7 months. I could not put the three-legged, I could not have a slide without the three-legged stool. And this is a reminder to me, Chris mentioned this, that three-legged stool that we all learned from Jack Elias. And the three-legged stool is something that I think all of us who have graduated from Brown, whether we knew it or not, we took it with us. So this three-legged stool of research, education, and patient care is an important legacy of all of us, but really drilled into us by my good friend Jack Elias. So thank you, Jack. He and other faculty members help to define and redefine our mission. It's what we take away when we leave the medical school here. It's a set of core values. It's a North Star. It's guiding principles. We learn to lead, we bridge, we broaden, we innovate, we become accountable, we practice humility, we become relational and transformational. We create that value add that so many of us talk about. We learn to build trust, to display ambitious vision. And these are skills that I have brought to me in my practice in the military, as a gynecologic oncologist, as a member of the corporation, but most importantly, as a citizen. Who are we as alumni? We're activists, and we remain activists, and thank you for remaining activists. Thank you. We're philanthropists. This slide demonstrates the collaboration between undergraduate alumni, medical alumni, and members of the greater Brown community that contributed generously to stand up an endowed scholarship for medical students who are African American, honoring Levi Adams in 2018. So this is who we are as alumni. We are proud and accomplished medical alumni who lead community-informed, community-inspired efforts in research, engagement, entrepreneurship, and digital upskilling. A few names to talk to you about. Seth Berkley, medical school class of 1981, president and CEO and founder of the International AIDS Vaccine Initiative. Griffin Rogers, MD class of 1979, director of the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases at the NIH. Erica Swartz, MD class of 1998, Deputy Surgeon General of the United States, 2019 to 2021. This is who we are. This is what we're proud of. But there is some very personal pride that I have in who we are. In the panel on the left are two of my best friends from medical school. Bill Stevens, who currently is an orthopedic surgeon in Phoenix and served in the Army with me, is one of my housemates. Tina Cheng in the middle, one of our housemates as well too, who currently is the chief of pediatrics at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And in that panel on the right, two very dear darlings of mine, my daughter and my son, and they're holding baby Al. Many of you don't know who baby Al is. Giselle may know who baby Al is. Allison Kanka Cheng is Tina Cheng's daughter. And we're generational here at Brown now. We have children who graduated from this medical school as well too. And like Giselle, 4 Sundays from now, baby Al will become Dr. Allison Kanka Cheng. MD class of 86, 30th reunion. We come back, we advocate. It's important to give back to the Warren Alpert Medical School, and we stay engaged, we stay involved. And I'll leave you with this. I don't know if you know these two people. On the left, if you look carefully in the background, you'll see what Manning Chapel used to look like on the inside. My wife Savannah and I got married Manning Chapel in 1986. We came back in 1987. We come back a lot. We came back in 2017 for her 30th medical school reunion. And what I want to leave you with is the following. The present never tells us the whole story. We must acknowledge the past to define what the present and what the future will tell us. It's important that we continue to ask questions of why, what, and how. Tomorrow could be today. Overall, the bottom line, we all share the same stethoscope. Thank you.
All right, good evening, everyone. And thank you, Jeff, for those wonderful remarks. What I was telling Jeff was that before I started at Brown, you do all your homework as the new person coming in. And for those that don't know me, my name is Mukesh Jain, and I just started on March 1 as the dean of the medical school. And so I was just sharing with Jeff briefly that I had done my homework and I read about the medical school and its history, but I love this one, before, during, and after Jeff. We gotta modify the Wikipedia page. I really like this. And what's up with going to Connecticut? Just keep coming, it's time to come home, Jeff. Yeah. No, but thank you very much for those wonderful remarks. And thanks to all of you for coming out tonight to celebrate the story of medicine at Brown. And what a story it is. And as you heard from soon-to-be Dr. Bello, President Paxson, Senator Reed, and of course Dr. Hines, that history is remarkable and it's filled with impact. Over the past 2 months, I've had the privilege of working with so many leaders across the biomedical ecosystem here, as well as the Rhode Island community. These discussions have helped to shape a vision of what the future holds, and one that builds on the accomplishments of the past 50 years. And we all know that the 50 today is the new 20. Just ask our experts in aging. I think I saw John Sedvey somewhere out there. Now, looking ahead, let me tell you what I see on the horizon, what drew me to Brown at this auspicious moment, and what we can expect in the years to come. So I joined this community because of the bold vision that was set forth to shape a world-class biomedical ecosystem here in Rhode Island with the goal of offering substantial contributions to human health and patient care. This bold vision will require growing research. And we're doing this. And we're building on the legacy of Jack Elias, who really advanced, as you heard, about the three-legged stool and particularly the research effort. Investing in critical areas to decipher disease, develop novel treatments, and thereby address some of society's greatest unmet needs. There are many, many examples, but I'll offer just three. Jay Curtis and his colleagues identifying a completely new target to combat malaria, and on that basis developing vaccines and biologics to battle the single greatest cause of death amongst children in the developing world. Method Tooley. Yes, that does deserve an applause. Method Tooley, who believes firmly that if you provide good health care to a woman, you are taking care of the family, a community, and frankly, a nation. And Wafiq El-Dieri, director of our Legaretta Cancer Center, 2021 Brown Inventor of the Year, who's discovered novel pathways to combat cancer, efforts that are entering clinical trials. The goal is simple, to impact human health in Rhode Island and beyond. And it is really hard to think of anything more important, more noble. This bold vision will also require investing in the next generation. We would all agree that our students and trainees, like Giselle, are the future. And central to this vision is developing skilled and empathetic physicians and scientists. Brown's approach to medical education is very well recognized, and we're committed to ensuring that we remain at the forefront. Among our actions will be to review our curriculum, improve on it, improve on the student experience to ensure that it reflects our values, societal needs, promotes equity, so that we're tackling and not perpetuating persistent and unjust health disparities. This is fundamental to our related commitment, cultivating a community that values diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our success and continued excellence depends on getting this right, and we will. And this bold vision requires partnership. And in this next chapter, we will join with our partners to reimagine and recommit to even more meaningful community engagement. And we will lean into our mission to improve the health and wellness of all with the express purpose of improving the quality of life for our community. Today's ambitions are perhaps even greater than the founders of the school could have imagined. And we're most certainly positioned for success. How do I know? What gives me such optimism? Because we have visionary leaders, President Paxson, Provost Locke, Chancellor Menkoff, and the Brown Corporation. We have the vital guidance and support of the Warren Alpert Foundation and the generosity of so many alumni, friends, and supporters. And we're very fortunate to have remarkable colleagues within our community, our amazing faculty, staff, and students, partners in engineering, public health, and the Carney Institute, and critically, our affiliated teaching hospitals. With all this, and emboldened by the loyal engagement of all of you, I'm extremely confident that together we will not only meet, but surpass our greatest aspirations. So before we conclude, I'd like to expend a special thanks to our 50 Years of Medicine Steering Committee for all their remarkable work, in particular Dr. Sear. We have much more planned for the coming year, and I hope you'll join us at future events. Everyone here tonight is part of the story of medicine at Brown. Thank you for being central to our unfolding narrative. I'd like to end with a toast. So if you can join me in raising your glass or your coffee cup. Here's to 50 years of medicine at Brown and many, many more to come. To health. Cheers. Thank you again, everyone, and enjoy the evening.